You're listening to the Self-Made is a Myth, Make a Difference Together show with your host, Coach Tim Campsall, where we talk with successful business owners to hear the stories of their journeys in building their successful businesses. And more importantly, we recognize the folks who help them excel because we know that achieving business success is not something we can do on our own.
Hello, everyone. This is Coach Tim Campsall, and I'm very excited to have a fellow business owner from Indiana with us today. My guest serves on the board of directors for Forum Credit Union, where she has the opportunity to help contribute to causes that make a difference in the world, like hunger and children's grief. In her downtime, seems like a theme here, she volunteers to help guide charities on how to fundraise, and she is most proud of the fact that while starting her business, she also served on the board of Brooks Place for grieving young children. And in that role, she ended up saving the foundation because they just were going out of money, and she donated her own money and then made some significant changes and helped them fundraise, and then even served as the interim executive director for 8 months while again starting her own business. So we're going to learn a little bit more about that here in a minute. It's my pleasure to welcome Lori to the show today. Hello, Lori.
Hello, I'm so glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Wow. So you had a lot going on. Well, before we get into that, I want you to introduce yourself to the audience. Tell us a little bit of your personal story, like where you were born and live, and about your family.
Sure. Well, Lori Winkler, and currently I serve as Chief Experience Officer / I help run some of the business for BlueSky Commerce. I grew up in Dyer, Indiana, so the region. I don't know, some people think that's good or bad, but had a great family. Actually, I still really love going back to Dyer. It's a great place. I was lucky to live there. We were probably 15 miles from Chicago, so it was interesting actually moving to Indianapolis because I was so used to Chicago in Central Time. And still have a lot of family back there. So you're still juggling the whole hour difference. But grew up, had a really supportive family and went to St. Joe's College. First, I went to Purdue, and then I stayed out a year to think about why I was in college. And then went to St. Joseph's College, where I was lucky enough to meet my husband. And I kind of feel like that all turned out okay. And then moved to Indianapolis after a short stint of living in Columbus, Ohio, after getting married. So that's kind of me in a nutshell.
And so tell us a little bit more about juggling that, starting a business and saving a nonprofit.
Yes. Well, I don't know. Some people think it's brave, some think it's stupid. But going back to growing up, I actually, when I was 8, my father passed away. He died suddenly. He went to help. He was totally fine health-wise, technically, and went to go help some friends of the family move that morning and never came home. And so, and I'll kind of speak to that maybe a little later about how that helped me later in life with business. But, it really, back then, people didn't talk about grief. It was kind of like, let's just move on. He's not here anymore, and we have to keep going. And good, bad, or indifferent, there was like this, and as an 8-year-old, you're thinking, man, I'm weird now. And I always thought, I'm going to go, even at a young age, I think I still had this entrepreneurial thing. I'm going to go start some kind of organization where other kids can be around kids who experience something similar. And so when I moved to Indy, I realized there was such a place, and I didn't have to start it. I just needed to get involved with it, which was Brooks Place. And when I got involved, it was probably 3-4 months after I started my business, WDM, and I saw their financials, which looked about as bleak as my financials, frankly, at that point. And I thought, what did I get myself into? And but I was so passionate about it at the time that I just did not want it to fail. And we were at the point where we had to close. And so I just kind of rallied the troop among other people who were equally as passionate. And in a very short time, we just kind of like the business that I was starting. You have to set a strategy. You have to understand where you need to go, and you have to do a lot of uncomfortable things in a very short amount of time to help you get there. And so we did, and part of that just included making some uncomfortable changes. And because of those changes, I had to fill in as interim director. And so I managed that pretty much full time at the same time I was managing my company. So
I love your heart, and thank you for sharing the backstories. That makes a whole lot more sense now in terms of investing so much time back into helping others. So on a funnier note, maybe, is there a funny story that your family likes to tell about you that you'd be willing to share with us today?
oh, there's so many. Many maybe I don't want to share, but it's funny, when I was somewhere in my early coach, when I had a coach, one of the exercises was to go ask my family about potentially something that you did when you were young that connects you to what you're doing today, and to know that you're doing maybe exactly what you were gifted to do.
Yeah.
And oh, my mom right away was like, oh, this is an easy one. She's like, you were probably 4 or 5 years old, and you would go around and dig holes up in the neighbor's backyard, and you'd fill that little baggies with the dirt from the holes that you built. And then you would turn around and go to their front door and be like, ring the doorbell and be like, I noticed you have a problem in your backyard, and I saw this hole, and I happen to be selling some dirt for like a $1, which was kind of a big deal at that time. And they would pay it. And she's like, so it just kind of hit like you were a problem, maybe a problem creator, but problem solver. You're a salesperson, you were, a consultant and an entrepreneur all wrapped in one. And so she's like, you're exactly where you need to be.
That's awesome. So I want to learn a little bit more about you and becoming a business owner, and that little story just gives some insight here. So tell us, I know you've had a business, you're now part of another business. So how'd the business come about, and more importantly, like at what point did you have the confidence that you could run your own business?
Yeah, great question. So, originally I started out of college as a psychologist and 4th grade teacher. Those were my degrees. And after living with my mom and making $17,000, I thought, this isn't going to cut it. And so I, through that, I had a gentleman after a couple of jobs and stints, I had a gentleman take a risk on me at a very early age to train and coach sales training to executives of enterprise level companies. And I really, really got behind the whole sales psychology, methodology. And then what I saw was, ultimately, I don't know, like, sales is one way, marketing is a different way. And so I went into more of the marketing area to try and align it more with sales. And so I worked for probably one of the largest Midwest agencies, ad agencies, as a VP of sales and strategy. And I really appreciate the gentleman who owned the business. Ultimately, he promoted me, and I think I was 29, to CEO. And it was a very large agency, and they needed to make some changes. And so I worked through a lot of those, and through that, I think it gave me the confidence, and I just saw what I liked and what I didn't. And I saw maybe a need that necessarily wouldn't fit where we were heading.
Hmm.
And so at that point, I decided that, you know what, if I can run this, I'm certain I can run my own. And so that's where I branched off and started my own agency, WDM, and had that for roughly 10 years, where we provided really full service marketing agency, but we kind of niched in that nonprofit space. So we could not compete with millions of others, but we could get really, really good with where we were. We had some expertise, and really sales and marketing was an area I think that a lot of nonprofits struggle with because they don't view their business as that.
Yeah.
And so we were kind of helping them take the similar digital and marketing strategies and being able to implement those for them. And through that, over the years, as we grew, it became evident. I had where I'm at now, BlueSky Commerce. I had a friendship with the owner of BlueSky Commerce, and through the years we had talked. He had, talked about, boy, we'd really like to add this to our company, and would that be a consideration? And eventually, it made sense. And so they ended up acquiring us, and so now I serve as CXO at BlueSky.
Fantastic. Isn't it interesting? You mentioned that nonprofits don't think the same way. I have that same question from folks when they're exploring our business, and like, well, we're not for profit. Is the things that you're gonna teach us going to apply? It's like, well, yeah, you still have to make money, right? You just happen to give it away, right? All the principles of running a business still apply to a nonprofit.
That's exactly right. And it's even harder for nonprofits. And I'd love that to change, but people scrutinize them on overhead and, things that if you're starting a business, a for-profit, nobody's saying don't invest in people, don't invest in technology, don't invest in sales, and definitely don't invest in marketing. Those are all the linchpins for making a successful business.
Yeah.
And so nonprofits have an even harder time because the things that make something grow and work are the very investments that I think sometimes they're challenged with making.
Yeah.
And so, we felt like we were really good at helping them find the money. And people would always say that. They'd be like, why would you work with nonprofits? They have no money. I'm like, they're the only ones who can go out and find it. And I'm really good at helping them get money to invest in marketing and sales. And so it was a great fit for us.
That's awesome. Lori, so tell us a little bit more about the company. Your company now, I know you've got some partners there, and you talked about the merger or the acquisition. So what's the name? What do you guys do? How do you help people?
Sure. So BlueSky Commerce, we're located in Noblesville, Indiana. I've been in business for over 16 years, and really specialize in e-commerce consultancy and technology. And interestingly enough, I mean, I don't know that I would have ever, when Eric Warren, who's one of the he's COO, but one of the owners, when he came to me and had said, Lori, I think we'd love to have your business. I mean, basically. And I have so much respect for the two of Eric Warren and Todd Irwin, who are the owners. I don't think I would have ever considered it had it not been these two gentlemen, because they are wonderful people. I knew they were great business owners. I knew they had a great strategy. And so BlueSky wanted to, typically where they built their foundation was really helping with system integration for e-commerce platforms, very large enterprise companies. And they're a global company serving enterprise level companies where they're looking to either migrate to a new e-commerce platform or implement a standalone platform for the first time, BlueSky was the team to do it, and they were known nationally to do it. They're probably what I would say is the pioneers in the e-commerce space.
Okay.
And then as e-commerce has evolved, part of the goal was to provide more of a 360, kind of a holistic approach to e-commerce, and not just look at the technology and the platform and the website, if you will. It's look at the customer, look at what the customer needs are, look at what the strategy behind the e-commerce business is from end to end, and from supply chain to ordering to really resources that you would need to really have a successful e-commerce solution. And so that's where BlueSky continued to evolve and expand. And recently, we actually are launching two different solutions, basically. One is our own starter store. E-commerce is kind of a big, expensive implementation, frankly. And the customers are evolving so quickly, the needs, shopping, I mean, we all see it. The demands are big. And so having expensive, clunky, and time-consuming inefficiencies and trying to make changes on a site are no longer acceptable. So our team, who I literally believe are the smartest people out there, they developed their own solution to make it straight out of the box, production ready, get it implemented, and you're ready to go for your e-commerce
Wow.
solution. Yep.
That's amazing. So for everyone listening, make sure to check them out. Go to the link in the description attached to this video, and go visit Lori on LinkedIn and let her know that you watched her interview. Hey, Lori, share a story where someone pushed you or inspired you that you could do it, and even though maybe you didn't think that you could, and the impact that person had.
Yeah. So it kind of dates back a while ago, but and it goes back to, so when I talk about my family, I have a very, 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 very intelligent, successful family, which is wonderful. At the time when growing up, I was kind of the C student, social salesperson, and they were the A+, A++ students. And so over the years, it was kind of like, what's wrong with her, and not that anybody projected that. It was me thinking that. Yeah. And that kind of got in the way of my success, I think. And it still creeps up in a little bit of a way. Do I have what it takes? Yeah. And can I really pull this off? And so I had gone and seen someone, and a coach, and they had said to me, they said, Lori, pull out a piece of paper, please. And Dr. Ugent was his name. And he said, if you could pull out a piece of paper, I'd like you to say, answer this question. Are you going to continue letting everyone else write your story? Or today, are you going to start writing your own?
Oh, wow.
And are you going to start so put together a foreword? I want you to write a foreword of your book, and it's going to talk about what you're capable, what you did, and what you're capable of doing. And that really was a game changer for me. And I still, when I get those kind of inward thoughts about, like, can I do this? Or, yes, maybe I shouldn't be in this role, or what have you. Yes. I go back to that, and I pull that out, that forward out, and I read it, and I realize I've kind of accomplished a lot of it. And so, just that alone, I think, has been probably the most impactful influence for me.
It's powerful. Our brain is so incredibly powerful that we end up attracting whatever it is that we think. So if we have those self-limiting beliefs, then that's ends up being what we manifest. If we switch those, I love the forward idea. or affirmation statements is another term for it, right? If we say, this is who I am and this is what's going to happen, then we just attract. Law of attraction says that we're going to manifest the things that we believe. So what an incredible experience. I love that idea of writing the forward.
Yeah, it really, I encourage everybody to do it. I think it goes back to once you put pen to paper, and it just becomes reality.
Yeah.
So,
and it's so easy to get stuck in our own head with, imposter syndrome or self-limiting beliefs or doubts or fears or, right? That we do need a go-to to be able to overcome that.
absolutely. Absolutely. And I truly am grateful for him.
That's amazing. What's been the biggest learning that you've had as a business owner?
Oh, I think for me, it's it's an old saying, but the only thing constant is change. And I think you can definitely depend on that in business. And I think being agile and looking at the headwinds that are inevitably out there, and knowing that you have to kind of stay on the offense, and not get complacent no matter how well you're doing. It's important to always kind of look at the forefront. And I don't know, maybe that comes from my dad having died, and like instantly seeing change, and you have to deal with it. Change is hard. I mean, it's hard. And I think as a business owner, you set that trajectory, and then it's hard to shift as quick as maybe you need to, especially if you don't have the resources or funding. And I think that's the one thing it taught me, was to manage to the change and be open to the change. And I think the other thing is people. I go back to people. People are your greatest asset and your greatest liability.
Indeed.
So understanding, I think that's the thing that might wear most business owners out, is, you can have all the skill sets in the world, and it doesn't, whether it's people being your employees or people being your clients or partners. Again, just like we talked about, everybody has their own mindset. They're in a different space, and being able to mobilize people in a way that really works for you, I think is something that you learn, and you continue learning along the way of having your own business.
I think those two ideas tie together in that, most of us prefer to not change, right? We don't want the uncertainty and the what's going to happen. So we prefer our comfort zone. I call it the caveman effect, right? Way back when, evolutionarily, you step out of the cave, you get eaten. So now we're just conditioned to want to stay in our comfort zone. But so do our employees. And so the change that you were talking about, right? We're everything we want in life and everything we want in our business is on the other side of our comfort zone. And so we have to be willing to change, and we have to find the right ways to enable our team to be willing to change, because if we don't change, eventually, the business is going to die because everybody is around us is changing. And we've seen examples of that with Kodak, right? And things like that. So.
Yeah. And truthfully, when I don't know if that's maybe a specialty of mine, that over the years, the change management, but even where I had been promoted to CEO of the agency that I spoke about before starting my own, they heavy video production, and video, it was right when video shifted to digital versus tapes, and things that were important before were no longer important. Speed was important, cost was important, and now you could do it digitally. You weren't paying millions of dollars for cameras and things like that. And there came a point truly where when I was at VP level, I went to the owner and I said, the Titanic, we're on the Titanic and there's an iceberg ahead. And so we may right now is our time to shift and avoid it. And I think that was the hard part is we weren't shifting fast enough. And that was ultimately part of also the reason where, I decided to leave. And that wasn't a knock on them. It was just, they had so much invested. I mean, I think people think change is easy, but they had so much invested financially, that even to make that change, it was such a big, hairy, audacious, task, not even goal. And sometimes it may be too late in some cases. So I think that's the big thing for me is always weighing out the risk versus the reward of change, and knowing that you have to make some risky moves, including the move I even made with BlueSky. That was a change. That was a huge change. I had to totally get emotionally okay with. But I knew it was a better move for our team. It gave them much greater opportunities for growth in a much quicker trajectory for that. And I just felt like it was the right thing to do for people, not even me necessarily. So,
Lori, I'm going to put you on the spot here a little bit. If I was to ask you to pick 3 people in your business owner journey that you're most grateful for them being there to help with your growth, who are those 3 people and how they help you?
Oh, geez, that is so hard because there's so many. I mean, I'm grateful because there's so many. I would say one was well, I'll kind of couple them, the owner of the previous agency before I started, and even the gentleman that I did sales training with. I think they gave me really foundational tools and skill sets that allowed me to have the confidence to start my own business. And I think, it's very rare and I'll take the gentleman from the agency, Mike Sanders. He's a great guy. And to think about it, I think I was 28 at the time, and he had a staff that had started the company 20 years earlier with him. He had put his blood, sweat, and tears. Very successful agency. And for him to take a 28-year-old out of anybody, 28, 29-year-old, and say, I'm making you CEO. That's a huge, I don't even think I realized it then, but when I had to, when you say things like who really made an impact, he believed in me. And I think it was that confidence that I got. And his belief of handing over a company, that I think helped me then realize, and then his support when I started my own, recognizing that I kind of had a different passion. That's a key person for sure. And then I would say, I had joined a CEO group at WDM, and I had a facilitator at the time, Jeanette Shallop, who was wonderful. And like any business, you need that coach, you need that confidant, you need that person who can help guide you and help you step out of the weeds and continue to focus on the strategy, not just the day-to-day. And when times were tough, et cetera, that person Jeanette was always there and still is to this day. And then I would say the other person is my brother. Actually, he owned a business, or still owns a business, very successful. And when I started WDM, my original agency, it was like a year in, and I'm like, man, I've spent kind of a lot of money, and is this gonna work? It's kind of slow moving, and probably because I was doing interim director role at the same time. And I was like, is this gonna work? And he said, Lori, you got to quit focusing on all this outside noise. You just have to. And I don't even mean the nonprofit part that, but part my own head, part all the like, what if this happens? What if this happens? Why isn't this happening fast enough? And he said, what's the worst that's going to happen? You're going to go find a job somewhere else and you're going to be fine. And honestly, this was a game-changing moment for the business. It really was, because he said, let's put it down on paper, 3 months. You're going to give it 3 months. What activities are you going to do? Just focus on the activities. You're fine if it fails, just focus.
Yeah.
And literally, I probably landed $500,000 in less than 3 months of new work and commitment to that work.
Yeah.
And that kind of really, and then we never stopped growing from there. And so I think it was a good reminder to, stay focused and don't try and be all things to everybody. Get what you need to done, and the other things will take care of themselves. So
wow. What a great piece of advice for all of us listening. Let's jot that down for ourselves too.
Yeah. It's so simple. I mean, it was so simple, but it really, I feel like that's what did it for me. And so that is a huge, and I think I'd be a little remiss if I didn't do the cliche shout out to the husband, the spouse, Aaron, because I know that's a fourth person, but it's kind of the most important, because I think anybody watching this who's a business owner and has started their own business, it is tough. Like it's man-made and nobody's gifting anything. You get a lot of noise around, you must just make millions of dollars and never have to work. The stressors, the nights, the checks you're writing out. It takes somebody really special to support you doing that, and to guide you and comfort all along the way without saying, hey, are we going to be okay, kind of thing. And he's a finance guy, and he likes no risk at all. So I have to really shout out to him, because he had to probably suffer a little bit.
Sure.
In the time commitment and everything else that it takes to get that off the ground. So
that's awesome. Last question here, Lori. As you think about the next 3 to 5 years, what's the biggest challenge that you see that you're going to face in hitting the company's goals, and who are the types of people you're going to need to solve those?
Yeah, in this business of e-commerce, technology, marketing, it's, what do you look at in the next 3 to 5 weeks sometimes, because it changes so quickly. And I think being able to adapt quickly, and look at, it's really, I think you have to kind of look at the landscape of who's going to be the next gen skill sets that we need. You've got AI. I mean, when the work that we do, that's a huge piece, as far as technology and shopping and customer expectations. I mean, the technology is coming out so rapidly to address needs of individuals. And then you've got just all of the expectations, I think, that people have of their experience, thanks to Amazon. And we continue to have these, we have to be at the forefront of product development. And so I think that's one of the key areas is we have to lead in that area, instead of waiting for other people to develop these products and then have us implement them. We have to be the drivers in that situation. So it's going to take a different business model. It's going to take different types of people. It really does require us to rethink kind of how we grow and build the people that we have, and also how we reward them. It's a totally different situation when you're developing new products and innovative products. We need to make sure that we keep the best talent, find the best talent. And I think that's always going to be a challenge moving forward. And I think we're going to need partners and relationships with schools, with colleges. We're going to have to help develop the kids early on, and we're going to need a lot of expertise coaching. And we need, I'll say this to anybody, in 3 to 5 years, it's always scary to look out at that. No matter what, I think everybody needs the Dr. Ugent or the influencers, because the one thing, you cannot go at it alone, and you're going to need bright people and coaches and people who are going to help you stay ahead of the trends and know how to shift and move to be able to deliver. And because of that speed, that agility, I think having those sounding boards is going to be critical for us.
Yeah, isn't it? The pace of change is so incredibly fast now that you almost don't even have time to second guess yourself, right? So, and being at the top, being an owner can be pretty lonely. Right? When we're an employee, we always had a manager to go to and, bounce ideas off of. As a business owner, we don't, right? It's like, okay, I guess I'm just stuck in my own head and my own thoughts, and that's never a good thing, right?
Yeah, that's exactly it. I mean, I don't even have as much of the burden as I had with WDM, right? But it's ingrained in me, I think, to just stress about things all the time. I good, bad, or indifferent, but you do, because I feel like any business, in my belief is, you don't become an entrepreneur because you want to make bunches of money. You become an entrepreneur because you believe you want to help people, and you can help them. Whatever you're providing, you believe you can make a better life for people, and it's either the people that buy from you or your employees. But that is a tremendous burden that you also are lucky enough to have, because it is difficult to do. And so I am a firm believer of, in the next 3 to 5 years, we have to surround at BlueSky, we have to surround ourselves with as many people who will give us advice, will share input, and will help us lead and continue to grow and be agile that we possibly can. So,
well, Lori, it sounds like you've been blessed with some pretty incredible people in your journey that have helped you along the way. If they were all here on the show today, what would you want to say to them?
Oh, geez, don't make me cry. No, I'm very grateful. I'd say thank you. I mean, it goes back to people want to help people, and I can't thank people enough. The only thing I would say is their kindness, knowledge, and time that they spent with me is most certainly reciprocated, because I am focused on doing the same back and helping others. So it's kind of a pay it forward situation, and I'm grateful for that.
I love that you said that, because a number of folks I talk to are worried about asking others for help or reaching out to folks and asking for coffee. And so just share a little bit more about that pay it forward idea. Why don't, you're a busy person, you've got lots on your plate. Why are you okay with giving your time to other business owners who are looking for advice?
I just know how important it is, because I was lucky enough to receive it. And it's funny because I think I was naive back in my 20s, right? Or dumb, or I don't know. I had just started calling business owners and asking them. And I think Lori today would have more reservations about that. But I was just like, whatever, I'm going to call the president of Lilly. I'm going to call it just, I don't even think it fazed me. And I wanted to learn, right? So, but what was so interesting is they all met with me. And they all were like, yes, I will take an hour out of my time. And then the minute I would meet with them, they'd be like, you have to meet Joe, and I'm going to hook you up with so-and-so. And I mean, that's really what set, I can't even think one. It was 50, 70 people who met with me in a 2-year time.
That's awesome.
And to me, they were all eager to do it. They all wanted to help. And that was the one thing that I saw consistent, is they appreciated. They actually appreciated, because I think people are afraid to ask them. And as an owner, if people are afraid, well, they don't have time for me, or no, they actually, they get where they're at because, they want to help people. And so for me, it's a no-brainer, because they had as much fun as I did. And honestly, I have as much fun talking to other people who own their business or, who reach out. It's actually helping me at the same time. I mean, so I think that's really the beauty of it. We're all in the same club, right? It's the club that's lonely, but it's the club that it's what the challenges are. And I think there's power, kind of like the peer-to-peer grief group. There's power in peer-to-peer entrepreneurial groups. So
absolutely. Well, Lori, it's been a pleasure speaking with you today. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Yes, you as well. Thank you for having me. And I would welcome anybody who wants to reach out. I'd love to talk.
Thanks for listening to the Self-Made is a Myth show with your host, Coach Tim Campsall. Please help spread this movement by liking and subscribing to our show and following us on Facebook and LinkedIn or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. To join our movement, go to BeMadTogether.com. Okay, folks, that's a wrap. Please pay it forward and be sure to tune in next time to the Self-Made is a Myth podcast.